What is shamanism? What do shamans do? Definition: a religious practice that involves a practitioner who is believed to interact with the spirit world through altered states of consciousness, such as trance. Well, today we're going to have a shaman and a psychic, Gail Hayssen, who's a writer, telepath, and, yes, a experimental subject. We're going to get into that more today on Truth Be Told. I'm Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told. Please welcome to the Truth Be Told studios for the first time, the one and only Gail Hayssen. Hello, Gail.
Hello, thank you for having me on your show.
This is going to be fun. Well, I'm excited because, we had a news show start that's part of the Truth Be Told family. It's called Truth Be Told Transformation. She did a little talk about shamanism at the beginning of the week. And for someone that really doesn't know a lot about shamanism, and I know, spirituality side, but I kind of like to get into a little bit more about what shamanism is, how you got involved, what's the difference between shamanism and witch doctors and all this stuff, because, people out here, the common folk, we don't know all this stuff. So first of all, you're a psychic medium, is that correct?
So I've been told.
By the spirits or the humans?
The humans.
But how did you become a shaman? Let's just get started there before we jump into what shamanism is.
Well, first of all, my life is sort of a collection of synchronicities that happen.
Right.
I'd kind of like to tell you how I got steered in the shamanic direction.
Yeah, please, because synchronicities.
I didn't make
perfect.
choices of these things; they just sort of all
fell into
come
place.
as they come. So I had my first experience with shamanism was I was dealing in my 30s. I had been diagnosed with cervical cancer.
Right.
And I had been raised in a family of vegans, and non-medical or dental visits we didn't do that. So we didn't go to doctors and we didn't go to dentists. And so when I had not taken one of these pap smears, and everyone said, oh, you got to take the pap smear, and I hadn't taken one in 5 years because I really didn't follow the protocols. And when I went in and had the pap smear, I was told I had cervical cancer and that I needed to have it removed immediately. But I actually didn't believe it because my upbringing was never to trust doctors or any reports of anything they said.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on a trip by myself. I had gone to the it's a group called the Huichol Indians of Mexico, who are a very, very old, I think they date back to the time of the Mayans. They're a very old and sacred group of people. And I was invited to come and participate in a ceremony there, the ceremony of the peyote ceremony, or the dance of the deer. And when I was coming down there, I had this amazing and wonderful experience, and I decided to go back again. When I went back the second time, I said, I think I need a healing from a shaman, because that's the doctors in the Huichol country. It's not a medical doctor. It's a shaman that you go to. And he's the person who, depending what shaman it is, there's shamans that do singing, that they're there. I think it's called cantador. They're there to sing away for spirits or to bring blessings into your home. So they have there's the shamans that work on getting rid of negative things. And there's some shamans that do sort of black magic kind of things that aren't, as a good, reputable, good shaman to go to. So this shaman Nietzsche was picked out for me by the other the other Huichol people I was with. And he went to give this cleansing on me. And I've noticed this in both cultures and things I've seen, where shamans seem to do some sort of a sucking or removal on the body of energies that are more invisible.
Right.
And the shaman was working on me, and he was doing all these things with his feathers, and he was spitting things in his hands. And as he gets down to my abdomen area and down towards my crotch, he says, and this is interpreted from Huichol into Spanish into English. So this is how I get the information. I do speak a little Spanish, but not deep details.
Right.
And so he said that I was very sick there, and that I had, his description was, I had a hard lump. Now, this is a man who didn't have any idea that I'd gone to a doctor in the United States and had a diagnosis of cancer that I didn't really believe I had, and that I was told I had 30 days, to get rid of this,
Hmm.
or it would spread. And instead, I had him do these cleansing, and he said, while I'm here, I have to do 5 cleansings on you at, like every other day or something. He would come and do this blessing with feathers and shamanic things, and
Right.
he'd press on my body. And when he spit in his hands, he showed me this like white stuff he had in his hand. And he told me this was part of what was inside me that had to come out. And he told me that I had to have it cut out. So I went up to we're at about 10,000 feet elevation, and it's a place called Las Latas. It's a sacred ceremonial grounds way up in the mountains in the Sierra Madre Occidental Mountains in Mexico. And you can only get there by foot. And I realized then and there that I really have cancer, because this shaman has just told me the exact same thing that a medical doctor told me through, examining tissue from
Right.
having biopsies, etc. So I became incredibly depressed up there, crying my heart out, thinking, oh my God, I really do have cancer. What am I going to do now? And my friend Miguel, who I was traveling there to visit with, his father, who was one of the oldest of the Huichols, he lived to about 102.
Oh, wow.
Didn't have a gray hair in his head, by the way. And he was just an amazing man. And he heard about whatever the shaman had said and saw me crying and all very depressed. And he made this mixture for me that I didn't know what I was eating, but I just trusted to eat this. I thought it was powdered like beef jerky, not beef, but like a beef jerky, but made from deer.
Right.
And it was some years later that I found out actually what I had eaten was the dried blood of the deer that's caught sacredly. And then they dry it and they pound it up like this, and it becomes this like, powdered herb looking thing. And you eat it in a tortilla. And I ate this. It was very salty. And after I ate it for 4 days up in the mountain, I felt like I was Superwoman or something. Like it had filled me with some kind of nutritional and energetic charge that wiped away all the negativity and all the sadness and everything I was feeling, realizing, actually, I did have cancer, right? And I then and there decided from him that I would go back home, figure out what I could do to try to heal this cancer, and whether I had to have surgery or not, now that I truly believed it was real. So that shaman was considered very respected in the community, and my friends Julio and other Huichol friends of mine would see him for different problems. It's not just necessarily physical problems that people go to a shaman for. It could also be relationship problems, or it could be problems in the invisible, where they feel negative energy coming at them and they don't know what it is, and they need a shaman to help cleanse and protect it. So this is some of the jobs of the shaman. I'm not an intellectual that can give you a whole story about the history of shamanism and
Right. Right.
and what shamans do. I can only give you my experiential shaman experiences. So after that, that was in my 30s, I didn't think anything about myself being a shaman. All I had was a tremendous amount of respect for the shaman because of the experience we had together. Well, I went on one trip to New York to visit my family. I live out here in California. And my friend Russell Tard brought me over to meet a dear friend of his, Ingo Swan. And Ingo Swan was considered, I think, one of the best remote viewers in the world. And he was the person who coined the word remote viewing. And we met in his house. And when we were there, he was surrounded by all these amazing paintings. And we had this lovely time together. And when we left, he went to say goodbye to me. And he turned to me and he said, you know what the problem with you is? you're a shaman, and you just don't know you're a shaman, and you don't know how to act like a shaman. And I thought, okay, and it came out of the clear blue, I thought we talk about remote viewing, right? So that kind of got like, I think that planted a seed. And then I've written a book, and I had given it to Dean Radin to review. And when he wrote something, he said, in another life or time, this woman would have been a medicine woman or a shaman. So here came like the second drop in, and this was from a scientist, right?
Right.
That, I should be this shaman or whatever. And all through the years, people kept telling me, oh, yes, you have healing and la, la, la. But I just figure that's what they say to everybody when you have these readings. So then I end up volunteering and working for Dean Radin in the research department at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. And we were to have a conference, and this woman calls from Berkeley, and she says how much she would love to come for the conference. Her name was Ruth Inga Hines. And I said, well, I'll be happy to give you a ride. If you don't have a ride, I'll come down from Petaluma, pick you up in Berkeley, and bring you up for this conference. Well, when I brought her up, it turned out she was a woman who, for the last, I don't know how many years it was then, maybe it was 25 years or something, she had been conducting a conference on shamanism in San Rafael at the Santa Sabina Center. And she invited shamans from all over the world to speak and share their different, because each shaman has different cultural instruments, different instruments, songs, dance, to come and bring and do their ceremonies and share them with the shaman in the shamanism conference. And first of all, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a shamanism conference when she invited me to this. So I go to the conference, it's 2004, and her and I have this it's like I found a mentor, and I have somebody that's encouraging me to talk and give talks in these conferences, which I did a few years later after attending them. And she has these shamans arriving, these Mongolian shamans. And she says to me, and about 100 to 150 people would attend these conferences every year, year after year. And she ran them all herself. She was a German woman, a brilliant woman, a professor at Berkeley University. And she was like the most knowledgeable woman on Asian shamanism, like that anyone had ever met. And she'd written many, many books. So she tells me, and she had her special way of doing her conferences, and she would yell at everybody all the time. And you could only speak for 20 minutes, except if you were a shaman and doing a ceremony, then you got some more time. So she tells me, the Mongolian translator hasn't arrived, Gail. So I want you to go upstairs, greet the Mongolians who have arrived, get them settled into their room, let them know what time their presentation is, and make sure they're ready and on time. And I looked at her and I said, I don't speak Mongolian. How am I going to tell them this? She says, don't worry, with a heavy German accent. You'll know what to do. Well, I go upstairs. This is Santa Sabina Center, is a place where it's used for nuns to go during times of retreat.
Right.
So it's very it's a very minimalist, simplistic place, but with really lovely, calm energy everywhere there. And beautiful little statues and waterfall thingies. So, not waterfalls, but fountains. So I go up to the room, and there's 6 of them just standing there, not knowing what to do, of course. And I'm to show them to each room. And I bring up, refreshments and drinks, and I try to communicate with just my hands and sign language. And I'm explaining how we need to take your clothes, open up your suitcase, put the things away. So I go to assist the shaman because nobody understands what I'm saying. And I open up the suitcase. So when I open up the suitcase, I expect, well, the shaman came from Mongolia. You got to have a lot of clothes there, whatever. I open up the suitcase, and there is no clothes in there. There's only all sorts of dead animals. And they're parts of his shamanic tools. But this is my first exposures to this other world of shamans. And he's got a hat that's made out of a complete turtle. He has full birds with all the wings and the full bodies that's
Mm-hmm.
worn, on the back. And he's got skulls and bones and, all kinds of unusual items that I cannot imagine how he got through customs with all of this stuff. And I'm thinking that in my mind, and they're looking at the surprised look on my face. And the next thing I know, because we started communicating telepathically, just like Ruth Inga Hines knew I would end up doing. She had enough faith in me to do this. So he looks at me and understands that I'm in awe of, like, where's your clothes, and how did you get this in? And he takes out this beautiful, shaped almost like an envelope size, but a little bigger,
Right.
all silver, beautiful hands done silver. And he lifts up the little lid, and inside are these sheets of paper that are all written in a gold leaf writing, with gold.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in Mongolian,
Oh, wow.
but they're the papers that officially say you're a shaman. So that this is what he must have shown to customs that allowed him to bring in all these unusual items, including a drum that was made out of two human skulls.
Oh,
These are
wow.
like very ancient
Right.
pieces. They're not like these people were killed last year.
Right.
These are things from, generations ago that have either been handed or passed down. But I had no idea until I totally looked, really closely, that this drum was composed of two skulls that had been turned this way, so that the other side could be the part where you put the drum and use it. So I'd never seen that kind of thing, not human tools made out of human body parts.
Right.
And he also
That would
had
be a
another one
shock.
that was made out of, and he actually gave this to me on this one of these trips. I've been given gifts by all these different shamans of unusual items, but this was the most unusual one I'd ever been given. And this is before I was ever initiated. And it's an ancient bone that you blow through to rid a person of negativity.
Hmm.
And it gets passed down, and each person ends up hanging their scarf, which is called the hatag. It's a Mongolian scarf that's used in all religious, well, not religious, but in all ceremonies and to protect your home. And, it's sort of like a mezuzah, but, but these are scarves. And each one is tied to this. So when the next person gets it, they put their scarf. And when you run through them, you see the original old one had once been white, and it's now like blackened from age.
Right.
So it's a very old piece. And these are the kind of tools and things that were in this suitcase. We got down in time. He did the presentation. The translator never arrived. Everyone just experienced what he had to offer energetically with no explanation of words. And the 100 or so people were very moved by his ceremonies.
Right.
And he affected quite a few people there. So that was how I got exposed to shamanism. I never sat there and said, oh, well, I should become a shaman one day.
Right.
But then in 2011, I was invited to attend the 800-year anniversary of the Mongolian Empire. And I just have to read to you off of this. It was the Mongolian Empire, founded by Genghis Khan on July 1 to 5, 2006. The Center of Shaman Eternal Heavenly Sophistication is going to organize an international shamanic symposium, and we want to welcome you to attend our symposium. Shamans will come from USA, China, Russia, and Korea.
Wow.
So I went there and attended that shamanism conference and saw amazing shamanic things that happened, including stopping of the rain, bringing on the rain, amazing things. And I was invited to come back again, and I decided to bring my whole family because I was asked to speak at another conference there. And when I went back with my family to speak in 2011, we were in a beautiful national park in Mongolia with all these powerful shamans, and we meet Zagda. And Zagda is like this really powerful lady. I was a little scared of her. And she was, we sat in, we call it a yurt, but in Mongolia it's called a ger. And we sat inside this ger way into the wee hours of the morning, drumming, chanting in a circle, people from different countries around the world. It was a small group, and there were about 4 different shamans. And when she came to do her particular cleansing of us, it involved getting whipped.
Oh.
And shamanism isn't for the, you have to be tough to go through shamanic experiences. It really is. I don't want to think it's like a walk in the park. It is not. And it depended when you sat, each person would have to go in front of her after another shaman had done like a
Right.
fire blessing on you. And depending on what she was getting rid of that she saw in you, that depended on how hard you got whipped. I fortunately just had a light whipping and I had my clothes on. But I did tell my children in the morning, I can't believe you didn't wake up, stay awake to see your mom get whipped, you know? You would have enjoyed this. So there was another gentleman there who got a more intense whipping, the most intense of anyone there.
And what did you say they break the whipping down by? By what?
But it's what she sees like negative in your body
Oh,
or in your field.
right.
I don't know if it's energetic. In this case, it was a physical ailment for this
Oh,
man.
got it.
And he had suffered with very bad back pains for many years. And he lives in Japan, but he was there attending this particular conference.
Hmm.
So this gentleman, his Kevin was his name. I'm watching and she's whipping and I'm thinking, oh my God, you know? And another person, it was like just a gentle whip like this. And then she'd say, and then when she was done, she'd say, you're done. She was whipping like harder and harder, you know, but he had a jacket on and, you know, it's not
Right.
like he was doing it on the bare skin, but it was an intense whipping. And he was someone I stayed in contact with. And he told me that when she finished his whipping, the next day was the first time he had no back pain in
Oh,
years.
wow.
And we
Maybe I need to
spoke
go
with
see
each
this
other
front
because
woman.
we'd seen each other at other conferences later. And he said to me, I still have no back pain. So
Wow.
I'm just sharing an experience of someone's experience with a shaman other than myself with cancer. He's with a back pain.
Right, right,
It's a
right.
smaller issue, but still the shaman is giving him relief. And there's, you know, he didn't say to her, I have a bad back. She's just saying this man's back needs to be taken care of because the shaman sees and knows where to go. So we leave Mongolia, we say goodbye to her. And the next thing I know, a few months later, she's coming to the United States. And I'm not sure if it was her first trip or not, but I know it was her first trip to California. She's a very, very big shaman in Mongolia right now. And she travels the world and speaks in symposiums and, you know, different things in in Korea. She does a lot of work around the world. And so since that time, from 2011 till now, she's become an incredibly busy woman. So she came here, she stayed with us. We had a lovely time. We showed them around. We did things together. Whatever. And then we put her in a car that she was leaving with some friends going up to Chicago, where there's a large Mongolian group of people. And when a shaman comes from Mongolia, if there are any Mongolians near, in fact, one of the shamans, I had a different one, Dr. Lagva was here, and shamans, they brought kids from Chicago here so that they would get a blessing and cleansing from a
Wow.
shaman. Like the people that brought their Mongolian family here
Right.
to have a cleansing were for serious things, where one was an alcoholic, another, this kid was on the wrong path. And the thing I want to say to you is that when I checked up on what happened later on, there was a change. The person stopped alcoholism. He did change his life. He had a severe whipping here, I have to say. And this young boy went home and became like a student and got his life together. So, you know, the Mongolian people are grateful when someone from Mongolia comes here. So I try to provide a space where they can do this if they do want to, you know, come here.
Right.
So she comes and she's about to leave and she goes away and she comes back 2 days later and says, I can't go to Chicago now. She doesn't say this to me in English, but I have to stay here. You have to become a shaman. I said, what? I didn't say, Zagda, could you turn me into a shaman? You know what I mean?
Right, right.
Uh, but I had all of the items that had been given to me over the years, including a handmade Mongolian dell, I think is what it's called. It's the beautiful brocaded clothing
Right.
you've seen
Yeah.
in the pictures I was wearing. That was hand stitched and handmade for me by one of the most famous artists in Mongolia and her mother. And she said, it's not that photo. And
No?
she said that it's the end. Yeah, there we are. You see, it's gold and
Yeah, it's
blue.
beautiful.
That's all hand stitched by two women who I hardly knew, that sent it to my hotel the night before I left Mongolia on that first trip.
Wow.
But I didn't know that that was going to end up being turned into my shamanic clothing 6 years later. So she said to me, I saw spirits all around you, and all those spirits need to, work with you. You need to become a shaman, and I'm going to initiate you as a white Buryat shaman. In Mongolia, there are different groups of shamans, and they have certain different um, things that they follow. If they're a Buryat shaman, or if they're, I can't remember the names now of the other different types of shamans,
Mm-hmm.
but Buryat is one of the oldest of the shamans. And they require, I think it was 28 of these, they're actually considered snakes. And
Ooh.
you'll see them dangling in the photos off of my clothing. Well, when she said we had to prepare for the next
Oh, these.
7 days, I hardly had sleep. And we had to get all of these items she would be asking for, but she'd have to kind of describe and point to things. So we figured out she needed clean sheep's wool. She wanted sheep's wool. And oddly enough, I went to some craft store and someone had just left a box of wool there recently in front of the door. So they gave me this whole box of wool. And then it turned out another friend of mine, Kim, she happened to have really clean, beautiful sheep's wool she'd saved, she didn't know why, in a bag for years. So the items I needed were odd items, and they were just coming at me at the time that she'd be asking.
Wow.
So we
Universe
had to
spoke.
sit there at night, and I'm not like, I do arts and crafts things, but I'm not like a seamstress. I
Right.
can't sew very
Right.
well. We had to sew these snakes. I don't know if you can see them, but they're little tiny tubes, and they're about the width of a carrot or something, a thin carrot. You see them dangling down there. It's blue, yellow, red. Well, the colors of what they had to be are very important. At the bottom, you'll see those are the tails, the
Mm-hmm.
ends of the
I see them.
snake,
Yeah.
and at the top, attached on the top of the clothing, is their head, and they each have two eyes. They each have a mouth, and they're all made out of leather on the top and the bottom. They're filled with sheepskin. We made all the tubes for her, but she had to twist the sheepskin to be able to get it through those tiny
Oh
little
my God.
openings. And
Wow.
let me tell you, it was very painstaking. And when we finished them, hours in the night, and I'm not a night person, I'm a day person, and I had to stay up till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning every day for 5 days making these. And she said to me, be very happy. In Buryat, we only need 100, we only need 28. She said, if you were initiated as this other type of shaman in Mongolia, you would have had to make 108 of these,
Oh my
which I
God.
would be still doing them probably.
Right.
So she comes in the next day and she takes out this measuring tape and she measures each one and says, oh, you didn't do these correctly. This is not right. And when she's not happy, you don't need any language for that. She says, you have to redo all of them, because even though for me it's experiential, she's actually following a written form of how this is supposed to be made.
Right.
And every snake is a certain amount of centimeters. And if it's 2 centimeters off, it has to be redone.
Oh my God.
So we redid them all.
That's
And
crazy.
I had to like lay out all kinds of my things that I've used before in ceremonies. And she would pick what things would be part of my shamanic initiation. So my Huichol things, I was given a pendulum, one of those fortune telling little balls that you hang and it
All
tells
right.
you yes or
Mm-hmm.
no. It was given to me by an Ecuadorian shaman. So she would pick out things, and all of these things had to be laid out on the table, including all of my clothing that would be dressed, I would be dressed in later. She then said I needed 10 people to work that day to do all the things to prepare for the ceremony. And she told me, excuse me, I had to invite my family, my mother, anyone who could come.
Right.
But it was a weekday where most people are working, and it was a day where I only gave people like 3 days notice, oh, I'm having a ceremony. I didn't know people were supposed to be invited. So she chooses, I live on 15 acres in an orchard, so I'm surrounded by lots of trees.
Nice.
But I have only one tree on my property that's a huge redwood tree. And it's the thing you can see the furthest on the road when you're coming up our road, Green Valley. That tip of that tree shows above any other tree here. That's how tall it is. And she said, that's where we're going to have the ceremony. So she told us different things we had to do to gather. We had to make all these things for the clothing, and then we had to gather different items. So there needed to be 9 rocks, like beautiful round rocks, which all came out of my landscaping. I happened to have abalone shells because I had friends who were abalone divers. So when she saw the abalone shells, that was the perfect thing. And we needed not 5 pounds of salt, but like 50 pounds of salt.
Oh my God. That's a lot of
And we
salt.
needed gallons and gallons of vodka, milk,
Of course you
and
do.
water. And what she did was the salt was used to be spread in a huge circle around the edges of the tree, but a huge circle
Like a
that
big
this
margarita.
became an invisible ger or yurt. And the white salt is where you're protecting everything that goes on inside that circle is protected by this salt. I don't have deep explanations because remember, this is all done without a translator.
Right, right.
The next thing she wanted was that there would be a little doorway so that means that's where anyone enters into this new sacred space. Then she set an altar up by underneath the base of the tree. And then for whatever reason, only women, these are where the 10 people were doing all this work. I didn't know about everything that was going on because she was preparing me in the house with other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And out here, she was instructing people by yelling at them, go and do and giving like a sample. So there was 4 colors of ribbon, I think, 3 or 4 colors, not red, yellow and green, which represented nature and plants and trees,
Mm-hmm.
and white and blue, which represented sky. And they had to go around my redwood tree, which is a really, it's like they needed ladders, and tie these ribbons all around the tree.
Oh, wow.
And then we had to like melt tremendous amounts of fat and butter into little tiny cups. And this is definitely all part of the Mongolian shamanic tradition. And these cups had to be hung all around the tree also.
What was that purpose?
Not sure what I think that had to do with feeding the spirits.
Oh, okay.
That the butter in there was feeding the spirits. And then this is the funny one, so I hope you're ready for a funny one.
I need it. Come on, let's do it.
She tells my husband, who's the sweetest man around, and by the way, he's an MIT and Yale, AI person.
Right.
So he's everything opposite the shamanism things.
Right.
And he had to be one of the 10 working very hard on this preparation. And so she tells him, I need horse shit. I need horse shit. Go get me some horse shit. So my husband, we take like a 3-mile walk, and we live in an area where there's, fields of
Right.
trees and, vineyards and orchards, and people have horses here. And he remembered one of the neighbors that we walked by, that they had a horse. So he knew if he went to their field, he'd find a little horse shit.
Did she need dry or wet?
Dry.
Oh.
Had to be dry. So he goes over and he takes like a little tiny shovel and he fills a small bag like this. And he comes back home and he's so proud. But while he's there, he's thinking, you know, here I am trespassing on someone's property. I'm a black man. And I'm shoveling their manure. So he held his phone up saying, you know, I'm just doing this for my wife, you know, I'm not here to hurt anyone, you know. And he comes back and he goes in front of Zagda. And I was here because I was in the kitchen. And he opens the door and he's so proud of bringing what she asks to him. And she looks at him and her face falls like this. And she looks like this. This is the shit you brought me? This isn't what I want. She says, I know what I want and where it is.
Oh my God, that's funny.
So she jumps in the car with him and she just goes like this, you know, come on. I love this woman. And she takes those, you know, the white plastic garbage bags you use in your house. She takes that size.
Oh my God, that's a lot of horse shit.
And she's taking out, she had noticed that the exact dry ones she wanted were, of course, under people's rose bushes around that had the horses.
Oh my God.
So she takes David back there and the two of them are stealing the people's, you know,
Oh my God.
Off of the roses.
That would be, that would have got, you should have got that on camera.
Right? And fills up the bags. She brings them back here and all of it is put inside these abalone shells around this gare that we've made, and they are all set on fire. So this is in Mongolia, that's how they use, you know, instead of wood, they're using these dung patties from yaks, and, you know, and it's put in there and it burns beautiful fires. So she knew what she wanted and she knew where to get it. We just weren't, you know. So she creates this gare. She puts up, there's chairs for everyone to sit and watch the ceremony. And on her table, which you have in the photos, she puts and hangs all of her Mongolian shamanic things, and it's all hanging up on ropes. And she has mine all hanging up on ropes. And the ceremony begins, and part of the preparation was those 9 rocks that came out of my landscaping had been put in a fire for many hours. And the ceremony went on for 5 hours after this 6 days or whatever of preparation. And we get together and it begins, you know, part of the thing about the initiation is that you're being transformed. You're being transformed and you're shedding all the negativities that you yourself are holding inside your body and inside, or, you know, in your aura or spheres or whatever you want to call the areas around yourself. And I had specifically said, I didn't know that, I knew there would be something, but I said, could we skip the whipping?
I've already been whipped. I
said, I've been whipped in Mongolia and I just didn't want to get whipped. But I didn't realize whipping was going to be transferred into something else.
I hate to even ask.
So before I get to that, they did a lot of drumming, chanting, jaw harp playing. Oh, and I did bring my jaw harp if you want me to play for a few seconds.
I would love to hear it.
And she said, now, you know, there was a lot of sounds and things and whatever. And I was dressed in a white African robe that my husband had gotten when he was 16 years old in Africa. So I wore that as my clothing to be, you know, as the Gail. And then they said, now it's time for us to transform you. And I didn't know what that meant. But what it meant was all of a sudden, all my clothes were taken off of me. And I was naked in front of all these people, including my, you know, 75-year or 80-year-old mother and my niece and my neighbors and all these different men. And, you know, in my 20s, I would have gloriously stood there naked and said, yes, I'm here. I look gorgeous then. But at this age, it's not a pretty sight. Who wants to see this, you know? And I happen, right? So I'm standing there naked, completely naked, and the pot of all those 9 rocks that had been in fire for all those hours had to be brought over by the man who tended the fire,
Right.
who had been my therapist many years before.
Oh.
So this was an unusual role. He was chosen to, she picked who did what. And she has me squat over the pot.
Oh.
I used I knew I had something that you put ashes in from your wood stove, so I knew it would be able to take that kind of a heat
Right.
and not melt or damage anything. And so she had them in there, and she made me stand over the rocks, squatting over it. And then from the top of my head all the way down, they poured milk and vodka and water, and it cleansed all over my body, cleansing the negative energy. But when that water hit the rocks, and that vodka hit the rocks, and that milk hit the rocks, the steam that it created, I screamed so loud, my mother came rushing over. What are you doing, Tyre? And they said, they like pushed my mother away, you know what I mean?
Right, right, right.
And they said I had to do it again and again. So it wasn't like just one time. I had to
Woo.
sit there over this burning thing. And the inside of my thighs were bright. When I say red, it was red for hours. Later on, after the ceremony was over, the Zagda would come and she would just sort of lift up my thing and look again just to check the thighs, you know?
Make sure there's no blisters or anything.
Nothing. Everything was exactly perfect. You know, it was shocking to me and it burned at first, but I went through I know what the point of it is. You can't get negative energy, you know, saying, oh, no, you're so lovely. You get, there's some payments here,
Right,
and the payment was the burning sensation. After that, she had each person that was in the audience, or not audience, but the people that were watching, she had each one, but they were fully clothed, stand over the pot and also be cleansed. So she cleansed each person afterwards.
Oof.
Then she tells my husband, you have to take all these rocks now. Again, remind you, we have no English here. She says, and you have to take them away from your property and throw them out in the road somewhere. And these were all landscaped rocks, so they're the really nice, beautiful rocks.
Right, right.
But all of my negative energy and all those people
Collected
that were there,
all
that was put into that pot, into those rocks. And she said he had to walk backwards while he was, getting rid of these, and he had to wear the hat backwards. I think.
Cluck like a chicken. I was kidding.
So he just did it. What a wonderful husband he is. He went and got rid of the rocks. I think somebody came driving down the road on Green Valley within a few hours and saw these beautiful landscape rocks and picked them up because they were gone when we went out there later. And I'm thinking, I hope they didn't take my negative energy to their house.
You probably
anyway,
warned them about, should have left a note or something.
Right. And then we went back, and then I was dressed in all the Mongolian clothing after I call it the scalding, but that's not really what it was. It was the cleansing.
Right.
And they dressed me with, it was her, and her assistant was my dear friend's wife, Ayuna. Two of my Mongolian, she's like our Mongolian family that we stay with in Mongolia. And Ayuna and her dressed me and put on all these, the necklaces and all the different clothing with such care and such love. It was hard to express, but it was very tender moment in a lot of yelling and all kind of other things that went on before.
Right.
And she started to tell me the things I had to do. So I had to do 4 different things. And these things, which I sent you the final picture of, put me into a completely altered state. And I know I was in such an altered state. My son said to me, it was about 98 degrees that day. you can't handle heat. And you were dressed in that clothing, covered in furs, dancing, singing, drumming. He said, I couldn't believe that you were doing this. He said, I know you were in an altered state because you could never do that in a regular state. So I had to say, Om Mani Padme Hum over and over again. That was the Tibetan chant.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with those words?
Mm-mm. I mean, I may have heard it before, but my
I think
memory is like short.
Tina Turner spoke about them in her
Oh,
movie.
yeah, I do remember. In
It's what
Buddhism, right?
saved her in Buddhism.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read here for you that what the excuse me for a sec. I was just going to give you the translation of that, if I can find it here. Here we go. It invokes the powerful, benevolent attention and blessings of, I can't pronounce the name, but Shen Rizig, the embodiment of compassion. So that's the meaning of the words Om Mani Padme Hum. And her and Ayuna were saying it, and then that's what I had to say over and over and over again. I can't tell you how long anything happened for, because in that state of out-of-body experience, there is no time there. But there was some amount of time I had to do that, and then I had to take my Mongolian drum, and I had to keep drumming and drumming and drumming, and I had to dance. And so and also your eyes are closed, or she had me covered with a scarf here. And because you're ridding of this body and you're connecting with a spiritual body.
Right.
So I'm doing that. And then she has me do this, the jaw harp. And for some reason, I have a knack for this jaw harp that the Mongolians are like amazed at. Like I've been playing it for years, and I don't know why I have this connection with this little instrument, but I do.
Well, can we hear something?
Sure. Here, I'll just play a second here.
I would love to hear a little bit.
Usually when you do the jaw harp and you're using to do it for ceremony or in person, I would have my head covered. But right now I'm just showing it to you as a sample of what it sounds like.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I haven't been ever given a lesson in jaw harp playing, but for some reason I have this feeling for it.
That's great. Well, I mean, the jaw harp, what is it the vibrations? Does it invite in spirits? Does it?
I think it's the sound.
The sound, yeah.
Sound invites in spirit, I think. And it's one of the oldest instruments. Chinggis Khan had a jaw harp. When I went to the museums and saw the jaw harp there, I was in awe that this is an instrument that's been played there since the times of Chinggis Khan. And he was also considered a shaman. And shamanism was the religion of Mongolia until the different countries that took it over and didn't let them be free.
Brought their own.
All that history. Anyhow, so then we did the jaw harping, and I went in a completely altered state. And I got to a point where I'd been doing it so long that I just started to collapse. So they caught me and they put me on the tree. And I was there holding this tree. And I started speaking, I think, in what they call tongue or something, where just different languages and sounds just kept coming out of me. I can't tell you what it is or where it comes from or anything, except that in that altered state, that was one of the other side effects of this.
Right.
And then we let's see. And then we sat, then everything started to wind down after that. And there were certain things, for some reason, each child in my family had to give me a gift of money. I don't know what the significance is.
You're like, that's the first time my kids gave me money.
Oh, yeah, right? In fact, I have it. I have a special book that I made of, my shamanic initiation, and I taped the money in it. So I still have all the money.
All right.
from 10
Who
years
was the
ago.
cheap one that gave a $10 bill and the rest gave 20s? I'm
I
just kidding.
don't know. I was in an altered state at the
Right,
time.
okay.
I do have three children though. And and the other part was like she told the people that they should bring a gift. Like it's like an honoring celebration. It was like the best birthday like ever. And people brought such beautiful, touching, like shamanic items, like a special bag or
Right.
a special little bell or a feather. And so I was very honored to have all these lovely items and gifts. And it's now 2021, and we're still in contact, even though we've never been able to be physically together since
Right.
then. While she was here, a very unusual thing happened, which was um, there were some Mongolian students at UCSF in San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
and they contacted her and said they wanted to come up and film why she did an initiation because I was her first American initiation into shamanism she'd ever done. I was her 63rd. So in Mongolia, she initiated 62 Mongolians. And oh, a very important piece I forgot, and I sent you a photo of it. I'd like to explain it if you can see it in the photos. There's a photo of cloth, and you see drawings on it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Right.
Okay, I don't know if you can show that. Okay, see those drawings? Well, she told my husband another job that he had to do, and this was like the night or two before the actual ceremony, is he had to draw all these different children of different cultures and races and put them on this specific scarf, on this specific fabric.
Hmm.
She comes back in and she looks at the children and she says, "Wait a minute, they don't have shoes, they don't have hats. These children have to have everything. Keep drawing." I happen to be fortunate that not only is my husband so wonderful with this shamanic stuff, but he also happens to be very musical and artistic. So he drew beautiful children.
Well, he did a great
And
job. He did a pretty good
yeah,
job.
he did a great job. And that hung on the redwood tree during the ceremony. Well, apparently that goes back with her. She took that home. That was the only thing that went home with her. And when she sent me a photo once from her house, those are all the people she's initiated. Everyone has a drawing like that she has hanging
That's
in her
amazing.
home. So the drawing my husband did that hung here on our redwood tree in Sebastopol now hangs in Mongolia at her house.
Well, we have just a few minutes left. I can't believe this hour has gone by
Oh,
so
gee. Oh, I have
fast.
so many more stories. I didn't get
Well,
to
you're
tell
gonna
you.
have to now. Well, we'll have to do a part two now because there's still. I want to ask you about your being an experiment or part of the experiment. But let me ask you this: the final question here. Once that you got initiated as a shaman and went through the ritual, what have you done with it yourself? Now you're because listen, I live in L.A. and every street corner has a shaman, and so first of all, how do we know who to go to? Because there's many of us wouldn't mind being part or going to a shaman and help cleanse and feel better and get our lives back in order. But so how do we do that? How do we determine who to go to? And then also what have you done with your now gift of being a shaman?
Well, what I've done is, well, first off, I understand exactly what you're saying about there being one on every corner.
Right.
And, my first rule of thumb is if the person wants money and there's money to do with it,
Right.
then the shamans that I've gone and done healing with, or like Zagda, the work that we did,
Mm-hmm.
there was no money involved. She didn't say to me, "Okay, now that I've done this, I need $200 to cover my expenses."
Right. Right. Right.
She did all this because she was told by her spirits that this is what she's supposed to do. spirits don't charge money.
Hmm.
The information that comes from the universe, this is something that I have a problem with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that those things are supposed to be. I mean, I know people have to make a living and everything, but when it comes to the spiritual world and the shamanic world, to me, money isn't part of it. If someone wants to give you something because they are so thrilled with the experience they had with you, then you welcome that as a gift.
Right.
But you should. I expect nothing whenever I have any kind of experiences with people. Just the same, she never asked me for anything. She only gave of herself and stayed here for days doing all this work. She didn't say, okay, here's my fee,
Right.
and also, you know, so there's my one thing about the Hollywood or the LA corner people. That's about the most advice I'll give you. There's a whole bunch of money involved, and follow me with this. I don't go for that. I find everyone has a different experience, and some of the shamans I've met are, I mean, some of them are so wild and crazy. It's not right for everybody, but there's some people that person rings through and gets what they need. So
Mm-hmm.
you can't determine who that right person is. The person themselves has to know it from
Right.
inside their gut.
That's what I always say. Go with the gut.
Go with the gut. And I used to have a lot of shamanic ceremonies here, and I've had shamans from all over the world come to our house, and I would invite all these people. And then after a while, I started to say, I don't want to be responsible for recommending these people because I'm not sure how good they are either
Right.
yet. I'm just
Right.
getting to know them myself. So I like to have some discernment and not just jump into anything that you hear about. For my own self, what's happened with the shamanism thing is that when I put that clothing on, I feel protected to do if I'm doing some kind of work. But I never like to say I'm a psychic or I'm a medium or I'm a shaman. I don't know. I have a problem saying those things. But I did 3 shamanic cleansing or blessings or whatever you want to call them this last month. That was so powerful that when I finished, I said, I guess I really am a medium, because I expect nothing when someone, and I did 2 of them in person where the persons came to my home.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to do these in my bedroom. And then I
Oh, wow.
realized I was getting all their stuff into my bedroom.
Right.
Now I have a balcony off my bedroom, and I set everything up on the balcony and do it all outside. And I received a Siberian drum that came all the way from Siberia that I need to get it tightened again. But that's the drum that I've used most of the time. And things just happen when I do this, but I don't have any schedule or plan, and I don't follow any particular procedure.
Right.
I just use the tools they've given me, my jaw harp, my drum. I make sounds. And then if I sort of let my mind get out of the way and not judge or state or think or make a should or a shouldn't, information just comes up to me. And sometimes I actually feel the person who's passed away, like I'm moving in the way they move. Or I start saying to my friend, I don't know why I'm saying this, but I feel that I want, coffee or whatever, whatever the thing is. And that's when I get the validations from the people saying, oh my God, I never told that to anyone. How did you see that? So I don't have I always say to them, I don't know what'll happen. Maybe nothing, maybe something, but we'll just let whatever be occur. And it's brought some wonderful relief to family and friends that I love very dearly. And if I can give some kind of relief like that by making these sounds and doing these things, that's what I feel like we're here for, is to be of service to each other.
Right. Exactly.
So I want to be able to help in any way. So now this shamanic thing has sort of given me a uniform or a way to present myself to my friends and to be able to share this energetic thing that can happen when we come together as 2 people that we step out of the way in the mind's world and we connect in the heart.
Well, unfortunately, we have to go, but for the people out there that maybe want to know more about you, do you offer services or I know you have a book. I think I have it here, A Small Medium at Large.
Yes, I haven't published it yet, hoping to get that published at some point. I have a website. Actually, I have to read them to you because they're all just new and upcoming here. But if they want to email, they can email me at a small, medium, at large podcast at gmail.com. And if anybody has any kind of, if you can put that up on your site,
Yep, we
I'm
will.
always happy to answer any questions if I can help anyone out. I don't do things like readings. I do them only when they come spontaneously. If I'm talking to someone or I hear a message
Right.
or I tell them, but I don't have a shingle that says, come to me and I'll charge you $50 and I'll give you a reading. I don't do those kind of things. And actually,
That's
I've been
good.
like this since I'm
Refreshing.
a little girl. My dreams and, you know, experiences and things that I hear or know have been happening, way before I got initiated as a shaman.
Right.
So I've kind of been known that way amongst my family and friends.
Well, thank you so much, and we're going to have to do a part two because we didn't get to a lot of things that I definitely want to ask you. So hopefully you'll agree to that.
Well, I would love a part two. And in the part two, I'd love to share photos of the different shamans that I've had or seen or
Yeah, would
dealt
love
with in
that.
our conferences. So you can see what someone from Laos dresses like and
Yeah,
someone from Ecuador. And
I would love to see the difference because I know everyone has its own, personality. So,
oh, and let me leave this one thing for anyone who is interested in shamanism. The book that was written back in the 70s, I think, I'm not sure, is The Way of the Shaman by Michael Harner.
hmm,
He was the man who brought shamanism to America and explained it in a form and taught it. And his organization still teaches shamanism. Those are places that are reputable that you can go to.
I'll have to check it out because I don't know that book myself. So
The
I
Way of the
appreciate it.
Shaman. It was in pocketbook size back in the old
All
days.
right. Well, Gail, thank you so much. And people said they love your humor, and you're a sweet lady, and you're a
Oh,
natural at this.
nice.
So we appreciate you being on the show, and definitely we'll have you back for a part two. And everybody, please, in the chat room, people that are listening to us on our podcast and later on for our YouTube channel, thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. Always go to truthbetoldworldwide.com and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, share the shows, and also our podcast on Apple and all the other sites. So we really appreciate you. Until next time, I'm Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told. This has been another episode of Truth Be Told. Thank you so much for watching. Recorded live at UBN Go Studios in Burbank, California. Join us on social
Great.
media. Facebook, Truth Be Told Radio. Instagram, Truth Be Told Paranormal. Go to Truth Be Told Worldwide for more information on upcoming shows. Okay, Gail, that was great. That was
All right.
so interesting. Thank